So I watched Inside Out 2 recently, and I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty damn good. It reminded me of what the studio can do when it's firing on all cylinders. And because of that, I wanted to share with you guys my top 5 favorite Pixar films, with my only rule being that there cannot be multiple entries per franchise. With all that being said, let's start this off with a film that was really racing to get to the top. Listen, if you thought one of the Cars movies was in my top 5, you clearly don't know me that well. Monsters, Inc. is a damn near perfect comedy. Mike and Sully are probably the best comedic pairing in the studio's history. The world itself is unique and imaginative, and we get not one, but 2 excellent villains in the story. Randall is delightfully slimy as our secondary antagonist, but the real meat in the potatoes is Waternoose. Unlike with a lot of twisted villains, his motivations always feel in line with his actions. The willingness to kidnap 1,000 children before you let a company go under is just the type of motivation and work ethic that most companies would salivate at. Incredibly hilarious and surprisingly emotional, this earns its number 5 spot. But moving on to our number 4 spot, we're going with Inside Out. I cannot overstate how refreshing this movie was when it first came out. A movie about the inner workings of your emotional state sounds like it would be pretentious, but it's quite fun. From the regular human characters to the emotions, I don't feel like a single character was out of place or wasted. And I absolutely love the arc that Joy goes on and the message of the film in its entirety. Coming down to the audience's level and saying, hey, life is gonna suck, you're gonna feel sad sometimes, but that's not a bad thing. It's a very mature theme to have. I honestly think these 2 films form a perfect duology, and it should be a must-watch for any parents who have tweens or teen children. Alright, now we're moving into the top 3. This is what's gonna separate the boys from the men. Or more specifically, it's gonna separate the people who cried during the first 5 minutes of Up versus the people who cried during the last 5 minutes of Coco. Because this movie hits, and it hits hard. It is legit an emotional roller coaster. A story centered around legacy and how it can shape a family for generations is a very unique story to tell. But from the music to the character interactions to that slime ball of a villain, this movie hits it out of the park on all fronts. The Remember Me scene at the very end never fails to make me tear up, and to my kids and future grandkids, we may not be Mexican, but if you don't put me on the ofrenda when I pass away, it's gonna be on sight. And speaking of on sight, I know I was gonna catch hands from somebody if I didn't put a Toy Story on this list. And while I was tempted to put 3 on the list based entirely on how the garbage chute scene made me feel, seriously, I was screaming at the screen as a friggin' adult, I feel like Toy Story 2 hits a lot of the same notes, just a little bit better. But I'm not gonna lie, I could be a little bit biased. I saw this movie when it first came out I'm not saying that year out loud, but even as a child, I knew I was watching something special. From Jesse's song of abandonment to the themes of surviving versus living, this was something else. Yes, the good times are always going to end at some point, but that's no reason to shut down and shut everybody else out. Enjoy it while it lasts. Live in the moment. Now, while that's the A plot with Woody, Jesse, and Stinky Pete, the rest of the cast is not wasted. The traffic cone scene, Al's toy barn, Buzz versus Buzz, Buzz versus Zurg, this movie has incredibly fun moments. But it's not the best. Sometimes the obvious answer is obvious for a reason. I will die on the hill that Finding Nemo is Pixar's magnum opus. You have a son with a disability that is tired of being looked at as a charity case. You have a woman with memory loss issues that is tired of living alone and not having a family. And on top of all that, you have a dad facing the horrors of the ocean just to come face to face with the true terror. That it is okay to not be in control of every situation, and it is okay to let your kids grow up. The movie itself is endlessly quotable. I still know a random address in Australia for no damn reason. Just keep swimming. Fish are friends, not food. She wouldn't stop shaking the bag. I could seriously sit here and quote the entire movie to you. It's funny, it's heartfelt, and I personally feel like it's Pixar's masterpiece. But as always, that's just my opinion, and I want to hear from you guys. What are your favorite Pixar movies, and would you like to see me do a top 5 for another animation studio? Whatever your answers be, leave them in the comments. Let me know.